Hey, this is Grayson Peltier, and this is the Fixer Punk podcast. Well, if I had $1 for every single time somebody said that socialism or even social democracy will cause people to be lazy, not hardworking, and not perform well for the betterment of society, I would be richer than Dave Ramsey. And yes, I decided to throw in Dave Ramsey reference there because of my appearance on Street Fight Radio a few weeks back where I was discussing Dave Ramsey, and that's also why I put out the old intro to this podcast. It was called DIY Tactics, Gnarly Civics, and Reality, also in response to that excellent phone call I had with Street Fight Radio. And thank you to anybody who has come here and joined as a result of that. But just now, I was thinking about it. If you know anything about socialist ideas, you've probably heard the slogan, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. And I want to kind of break that down just a little bit and sort of the intention behind that slogan. So, of course, you have the first part, from each according to his ability. So each person would be performing as to their own ability, which that actually sounds like roughly what you would be doing in an ideal high performance situation. You're doing according to your ability, and more specifically, there's some clarification that some scholars have gotten into, that Marx actually meant to develop one's talents, not to work the hardest, not to necessarily everybody have the most amount of labor extracted from them, but to best develop their own talents, which that's actually exactly what you're looking to do in a performance situation. That's exactly the kind of mindset and the kind of process that you have when you're trying to make great innovations, when you're trying to create things that are for the betterment of society, when you're trying to create things like, say, the classic example of an iPhone, where the conservatives are saying, well, if we didn't have capitalism, unabashed, full-on late-stage capitalism, then we wouldn't have an iPhone. But that's just not the case. You have within the framework, the first part of the framework is that you are maximizing that ability to the specific talents that person can perform the best in, which ultimately that help society if we are going to have the presupposition that the original argument had, which is that this level of innovation and creativity is what drives society forward. And then, of course, you have the second part, which is probably the part there everybody thinks that we're going to get lazy, stupid, and fat from, which is to each according to his needs. But what is wrong in terms of how to improve the overall performance of society as a collective, and even the individual performance of a person in their best area of pursuit, in the area of their best ability to contribute? What is wrong with making sure that a person's needs are satisfied? What benefit does it serve to make sure that their needs are not satisfied? If you think about it from a performance standpoint, there's a lot of talk about, like, you have to be well recovered mentally, physically, and that is a need. And when you satisfy that need, then you ultimately are able to perform at a better level. But if that need is not satisfied, then you don't. Now, obviously, there is the idea of creating a reward, creating an incentive, which I have no problem with that. I believe in rewards and incentives to an extent, but taking care of somebody's needs, having a society, a system takes care of somebody's needs, that means that they are going to be able to have better ultimate output for the benefit of society. Because if you have somebody at too low of a level of income, then it just makes them worse at whatever. I don't know if you've ever gone into like a business where you've seen somebody who's just completely out of it, they don't really care about their jobs, probably not because they don't care, it's because they're overly stressed, they're underpaid, they're having to work two jobs. Wouldn't it be better for you, the consumer, and for giving the best outcome for that community where that business is in, that person's paid more, and for the business themselves too? That person's paid more, they feel satisfied, and they can do their job to the best of their ability. So let's compare that to the idea of basically extracting as much labor out of somebody as can possibly be extracted and only supplying what the other party thinks is reasonable, which is sort of the late stage capitalist view of things. What the other side thinks is reasonable for it, even if it's not their needs, and extracting as much labor as possible, not necessarily the best ability, the best performance. And you look at this at a society level, at a big macro level. If you have a system with that tenet of just extracting as much as possible based on somebody else's idea and then not putting back in, you're not going to get a good outcome. And even if you go back down to an individual level, you take so much out of yourself into doing something that maybe you're not good at, then not putting back in what you need to be able to sustain yourself, then that's not going to be a good outcome for you as an individual. You take a constellation of individuals, you build that out to society. So that is basically how you have a high performance socialist system. And hopefully this has helped you to actually digest that those phrases are not in contradiction with each other. You can't have a society that's high performance, getting the best technology, the best in science, the best in helping professions, the best in arts and culture, and have it run with a more socially conscious framework. And in fact, it's a better framework. It's going to lead to better outcomes. You're going to get better technologies. You're going to get better help in various areas of society, better running industries. You're going to get better art, better cultural products as a result of ensuring that needs are satisfied and that the abilities of the people who are laboring in these areas are actually truly being maximized. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Hope you subscribe to the podcast. You can go to Fixerpunk, FIXERPUNK.com. You can also find me on Twitter at GreysonNation, GreysonNation. It's probably the place that I update the most of all my social media accounts. And I look forward to coming back next time with you. Hopefully, we'll be talking a little bit about another sort of politically revolutionary idea that I'm using to help improve my own performance in my personal life, which is mutual aid. One of those ways we can start implementing helping people and also helping ourselves in the process. Thanks for listening. I'll see you back next time.